So we got everybody here. It's thanks for sticking around. It's great to see so many of you sticking around for the town hall. I believe we had the live stream back. So if you're joining us on the live stream, really glad that you're able to join us as well. And let me just say another word about, well, two things. One is, Ron Kent just let me know that if you'd like to see The Mission, it's on Amazon Prime, so you can go look for it there. I had several people ask me about the movie that was in the sermon today. Second thing is just about why we're doing town halls at all, and that is because I don't think we are, one of the things that we're working on is trying to tell the story of what's going on in this big, multifaceted church of ours that has so many things happening at the same time. And we want to try to do a better job of informing folks to let you know what your hardworking church council is doing, what the trustees are up to. We've had a huge merger, and there were, had moved through the church sale as part of that. So there are a lot of things happening every week around here. And so I hope that we will be having more town halls in the next few months, just so that we can have more opportunity to share what's going on. Another thing that's happening, of course, this year is our General Conference of the United Methodist Church is getting ready to meet in May. So look for our next town hall probably will be about that, so we can start to talk about some of the things that the General Church is talking about. I know we make headlines every so often, including yesterday's Daily Progress as a denomination, but I thought it would be helpful for us to have the chance to do some of that conversation too. So today, we're going to update you on two things, and Gary Bibb is going to come in a minute and to do the first part, and Guy Moffitt is going to come help us with the second part. The first one is one that is more informational, just to let you know about where the Rachel's Haven vision is going. So we've got an update on that. And then we have a solar panel project, which the trustees have been shepherding along, and the committee that is part of that. And we've reached a decision point with that, and we're hoping to not only inform you about what is happening, but also to solicit some feedback from you to take back to the church council as they make some big decisions about how and whether to go forward with the solar panel project. So that said, let me start us with a word of prayer, and then I'm going to invite Gary to come talk about Rachel's Haven. Lord, I thank you for this big, wonderful, unwieldy church, and for all the things that you lead us to do. You've given us hearts for so many different things, and you have used us in so many different ways through the years. As we move into this centennial year for this building, we give you thanks for the ways you continue to work among us. So help us to hear your voice, help us to hear each other, and help us to understand where you're calling us to go. In Jesus' name, amen. And I should say, after each of the presentations, we'll have a little time for conversation and questions, so you can be ready for that as well. Gary, all over to you. There's a...
I have to thank Fred Schneider, who couldn't be here today to do this, but he wrote the stuff that I'm going to tell you about. Okay. For Rachel's Haven, a vision that started about 12 years ago. So, for the past 12 years, the Charlottesville District Vision Team has been working to support the establishment of affordable housing for adults with developmentally disabilities here in Central Virginia. In 2017, the congregation of Hinton Avenue offered a part of their building as a site for such housing, which became known as Rachel's Haven in honor of Pastor Robert Lewis's late wife, who had worked with many disabled individuals in her own ministry. As you know, Hinton Avenue subsequently merged with First UMC on March 1st of last year to become Charlottesville First UMC. When that happened, the plan of constructing a building at Hinton Avenue site for Rachel's Haven came to an end. Happily, the Charlottesville First United Methodist Church congregation has continued to fully support Rachel's Haven's vision of providing affordable housing for developmentally disabled adults as part of a larger supportive community. With this change of plans, the district vision team sought advice from our project partner, the nonprofit Piedmont Housing Alliance, as to other projects that might incorporate a Rachel's Haven component, thinking that our former project co-applicant for state funding, that was the Park Street Christian Church, might be a good candidate. Instead, PHA's director, Sunshine Methan, suggested another PHA project, the redevelopment of the old IGA site on Cherry Avenue, Estes Supermarket site. It's across from Tonsler Park. This is a project being undertaken in conjunction with a private developer, Woodard Properties, and with significant input from the Fifeville Neighborhood Association. There are a number of factors that recommend this project. First, the number of units to be built are 60 to 70 units, which is a lot bigger than what would have happened on Hinton Avenue site. The federal guidelines for this is that no more than 25% of the units can be for mixed, in a mixed living situation, can be for affordable housing or developmentally disabled people. At Hinton Avenue, we envisioned 4 apartments. Here we may be able to incorporate 10 to 15. That is, gone from 4 to possibly as high as 15 units at Cherry Avenue. All the units throughout the project will be designated as affordable. All the units, all 60 units. And that will be 80% of area medium income down to 30% of area medium income. The development is well served by public transportation and is adjacent to the park, local commercial activity, and an established residential neighborhood. Okay, slide 4. Yeah. The project will also incorporate public ground floor rental space for Twice as Nice, a thrift shop, the Music Resource Center, and a small-scale grocery store, a business much needed in the neighborhood. There are to be 2 buildings, one primarily geared towards seniors and the other towards families. In short, a fairly diverse community. The vision team, slide 5. Yep. The vision team has met with PHA staff to discuss how Rachel's Haven might be incorporated into the project known as 501 Cherry Avenue. We have also met with the board of Fifeville Neighborhood Association to gain their support. At this point, although there has been no formal or contractual agreement, it looks as though an agreement will be arrived at soon. At such time, the vision team has told PHA that funds in excess of $500,000 can be contributed to support the construction of dwellings that meet the needs of developmentally disabled occupants. These funds come from many sources, including offerings from throughout the district. The district, back there somewhere. There you go. That's the Charlottesville district. And the funds raised independently by the vision team and proceeds of the sale of a private residence owned by a number of Hinton Avenue members. In addition, funds have been raised and set aside for ministry and outreach to Rachel's Haven's residents. The recent sale of Hinton Avenue Church and property to a local Anglican congregation, Church of the Good Shepherd, for the sum of $1.5 million, has enabled Charlottesville First to tithe a portion of those proceeds to Rachel's Haven to provide additional support for ministry. This might include hiring a part-time staff person to maintain relationships with the developmentally disabled residents and to help coordinate activities and recruit leaders to support them. The Rachel's Haven ministry has been truly blessed by support coming from so many directions, and although there have been many setbacks through its 12-year history, what has emerged on the other side each time has been bigger, better, stronger, and better suited to the needs of this underserved population. There's no better proof that God has had his hand on this project all along. That's it.
Great.
Do we have questions?
Yeah, why don't you stay here in case they're, yeah. And I think we have microphones here that we can take by Fred Miller back there.
Just for common knowledge, I think you said something about affordable.
No, hold it up.
Just for common knowledge, I think you said something about affordable housing. I mean, what is affordable? Say, what would like one apartment cost for the?
That's a good question. I have no idea. Here's what I can tell you, and maybe someone here will know the answer to this. Does anyone know what the average median income here in Charlottesville is? That's good. We're very knowledgeable, obviously. So whatever that number is, 80% of it, and it will be figured into the calculations for figuring out what the rents are going to be for affordable housing. But that's a great question because when we get going with an honest-to-goodness memorandum of understanding, I'm sure that will come out. This project, as much as we've done and talked with the developers, PHA, there's still a ton of stuff that we don't know. And like exactly what does that mean? It could mean anywhere from $400 up to $1,100 a month, but I don't honestly know. Some of those units will be 1 bedrooms, some will be 2 bedrooms. I mentioned in here that there's going to be money set aside for ministries there, so might be able to hire somebody to coordinate. This is so that we can use that community space for programs for the entire development. Everybody living in that place will be invited to these things. And that is one of the ways that they hope that you'll get the diverse nature coming together and you'll have a true family growing in that neighborhood as everybody just living together. Anything else? Yes, Karen.
Median income in 2022 is $67,000.
Median income. Okay. Household income, which would be what they're talking about too. Yeah. So you got 48,000 at the high end and it's down as low as 18 on the low end. So it can help a lot of people. Yes, Karen. Here comes Bob.
Do they have any dates in mind when they're going to be able to start?
No.
Still
No.
in the planning. I
We are
I
a
hope
long
it doesn't
ways
take
away
12
from.
years like Eris kept going.
No. Total cost for the buildings? No idea. But it doesn't, it really won't involve any more than what we're putting in. I mean, in other words, what we're doing is to try to make it possible for the developer to put the special things in the apartments that make it possible for a disabled person to live there, especially the 15 units. Things like alarm systems that if they need help, they can buzz it in or something like that. There is a place up in Northern Virginia called Our Stomping Grounds that Rachel's Haven has been using them as a model, and they have like five buildings now, and they have programs in each building, and it was started by a woman who has a child with special needs, and you can tell that's where this all has to come from. The passion for taking care of people who don't make all the money in the world or the people who can't take care of themselves.
How can we help? What can we do?
Well, I would venture to say that I don't think that we are looking for more money for construction. I don't think so. It may turn out that we are, but in the long run, the the ministries that are going to be put forth in the community center to bring that community together, to make it stronger, to make it so everybody knows everybody. That's the thing that we're going to need, I think, future funding for.
And I guess I'd just add to that there, we've been talking about this as a vision that's come with Hinton Avenue, but it's also larger than Hinton Avenue congregation, because this district vision team that Gary talked about is made up of people from a lot of different congregations. So one of the ways we can be involved even before a building is built is trying to help build the community of both church folks and families who have relatives with developmentally disabled adults in them, to do that kind of ministry before in other spaces until that space is available.
What kind of commitment are you actually asking from us today?
Could you repeat that, please?
What are you actually asking us to commit to today?
Nothing. What I'm asking you to do is to, if anything, embrace the vision, know what we're talking about as best we can. Anytime that we get more information, Fred or myself will be able to tell you. But as far as asking for money or anything, this is just an update of what's happening. If you knew where we started and the disappointments we had with having to take the Rachel's Haven thing apart from Hinton Avenue, and then all of a sudden Hinton Avenue is going to get sold. When Fred says this is God's hand working, there's no way any of this would have happened. Except it's getting bigger, it gets better, and it's going to mean better things for the people. It's going to mean better things for the neighborhood down on Cherry. So, if you get a chance, drive down by Tonsler Park, take a look at that lot that's going to be developed. It's going to be good. Bob? Hang on a second.
How many floors in that building? I can't tell.
How many floors does it have? I believe it's going to be 4 stories with an elevator. 3 or 4? 4.
Looks like 4, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll have 4 floors, elevator, it's going to make it possible for handicap. Parking is in the back, if you'll notice, and then they're going to have some parking coming right off the street. Pretty good design. Yes, Bob? Yeah.
How many people do you envision will be housed in these two buildings here?
I would think, you can't tell, because you're going to have some places going to have possibly 3-bedroom units, which you could have, 4 or 5 people living there with kids. So it's tough to say. We hope that it's going to provide housing for a lot more people. I know that with Fifeville, one of the things that was important to them, that all these units don't get eaten up by people from not in their neighborhood already. They've got a lot of people over there that this would just suit just fine. And so we expect a lot of people from Fifeville will actually end up moving into these units. Anything else? Yes.
Is there any coordination with Region 10 Mental Health? Because I think that's the organization that would be providing services to this population.
There is some coordination, but they're not going to be the only people who provide services to these people. That's why I keep talking about this ministry. Things like, for instance, if we get Carolyn here to go over and do some art stuff, that's what we're talking about as far as a ministry. We hope to have at least once a week something happen in that community room that's going to bring them together. It could be art, it could be special reading, book clubs, that type of thing. So, anything else? Oh, good.
Thanks, Gary. I think it's this. You know, as he said, we don't have any decision to make today. We're talking about funds that have been committed. Some of those funds were raised 10 years ago in hopes of having this vision come to be. So this is just an update on where we are and hopefully what we can celebrate in the year to come. So we're going to move to the solar project now. Many of you know about a year and a half ago, we had the opportunity, thanks to a very generous anonymous donor, to begin conversations about what it would mean to incorporate solar power here at Charlottesville. First, we have had a climate justice team that has been meeting and talking about ideas about ways we can be more sustainable and in the way that we generate electricity. So we have a small team that has been working hard to see what that vision would look like, and now we have some figures that we need to lift up as well. And Guy Moffett, who's been with our trustees a long time, is going to come and share about that journey. So let's see. Yeah, we'll give you this one.
I guess we ought to get the slides up. You want to start with
Yeah,
one
that's.
on the figures, or you want to wait a while?
Well, I think as you go through it, they'll be there. Yeah.
Okay. We've been working on it for a long time. Bill Owens got us through the first year, which took to get through the city and get approval to be able to do this. You can read about, hopefully everybody's gotten a copy of this thing. I'm not going to try to go through a lot of detail. The money to do the project is a big chunk of it, obviously. We've had some times to figure that out, and it's taken a while. Probably the electrical piece of it, it took some time, but we got that resolved and got that down to a reasonable figure. That's to connect the solar panels to the electrical system. The next part is the roofing, and we have a slate roof, which is 100 years old, right at 100. Life expectancy of that roof is 150 to 200. And it's pretty good shape. It's not in any reason that it wouldn't last that long. But to do the solar panels, which I think you saw some pictures of that that we sent out to everybody, hopefully. The panels will require us, we can't install it on slate. It's not quite the same as a shingle roof that you have on your house. So we started out to take the shingles off where the panels need to be and put shingles on instead of slate, and then slate up to the panels. So you only see the panels and slate. And the BAR and everybody was happy with that piece, so that's kind of where we were. But as we got into the roofing piece, we determined that that was going to require, to mount the panels, we have a rail system to get them up off of the roof and hold them. And that was going to require a lot of penetrations of the roof. They would be done, so they're sealed, but anytime you have a roof penetration, you have a chance of down the road having leaks. And we don't have leaks now, we really don't want them in the future. So the roofer came up with the metal standing seam roof that will go under the panels. It will allow us to mount the rail system onto the standing seams with clamps rather than having to drill holes through the roof. So that's the part we're going to, has increased some cost. That's been a factor, but it saves penetrations of the roof. 152 panels are going up. So that would probably have been at least 100 or 120 penetrations. We're now down to 3 penetrations for the electrical to go through from each set of panels. So that's was a huge cost, but one of the things we're really trying to do is make sure we're not going to shorten the life of that roof in the long run. So that's where we are. And if you read it, you see that we are looking at saving about $8,000 a year on our electric bill. Our bill runs right now about $20,000 a year, which is amazingly, prior to the pandemic, it was $22,000. So we have not gotten back to the full use. So 8,000 out of 22,000 or 20,000 is a good savings, but with the cost that we're going to end up actually paying, which is around 200,000, it's going to take us 29 years to get that back. The thing you have to understand is that everything is pretty well, not a lot of guesswork in what we're doing. We're pretty sure we can save 8,000 a year. The fact is that electricity cost is going up, probably, I don't know, you don't know, we don't know exactly, so we didn't try to project it, but realistically you can figure, 5 to 8% I would think every year. The other thing that we're doing, we started out with 62 kilowatts of generating capacity, and that's what we're planning to install. The current use, we are generally using about 30 to 33 kilowatts of electricity at the highest time of the year. So we're going to generate a fair amount of electricity, more than what we need and will use. That electricity will be sold to the power company, to Dominion. We honestly don't know how much that will be. We don't know exactly what they'll pay us for it, so we haven't projected it. But I think you can look at it, and that's one of the things in the payback period. We're strictly doing a conservative payback. I think that realistically, we're going to be looking at, at least another $3,000 a year. But I'm not going to guarantee that. I'm not going to write it down, but that's just a quick off the top of my head. So those things are not in the write-up, and the write-up, I guess, went through everything. There's the cost, and we end up with let's see, net cost is $237,000. The contingency's in there for a reason. This is an old building. It's 100 years old. We have done the best we can, but when we uncover, take that slate up, we don't know exactly what we're going to see. We had this with the steeple when we did it, and it was amazing how well it was preserved. We had very little extra cost, things we found. We did have some, but not much. And I think the same thing is going to be true here. I think we just don't want to go into it without some extra money in case. So that's what that is. I don't expect to use a lot of it, but you never know. So that's a figure if we don't have to use that. I would figure on the 237 for now, and that's what we need. Hopefully, some of the group on the green team has said they'll help raise some money for this, and hopefully we should be able to raise some of it. And it's really a nice thing to be able to say that we're helping the planet along with paying it back. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my concern is that you're replacing a roof that's projected to be good for up to another 100 years with solar panels that have a life expectancy of no more than 25 to 30 years. And in addition to that, they gradually become less efficient over the lifespan of the period of time. So same with the microinverters. They have a lifespan of no more than 25 to 30 years on average. So if you go this route, you're looking at having to more likely having to replace the system at the 30-year point, right when you're about, under some projections, likely to break even. So those are concerns I think that have to be taken into account. And solar panels typically become 10 to 15% less efficient after the first year when they get dirt and other particles on the panels they begin to lose efficiency almost immediately, and they gradually become less efficient over the lifespan. So I don't think at the 20-year point you're going to be producing as much electricity as you are at year one. I was wondering if you have any comments on any of those ideas.
I think the life expectancy has improved. These are warranted for 25 years. These and the interface panels are warranted for 25 years. You know, I can't say for sure, but I would think most things that are warranted are going to actually last longer most of the time. And that's, you know, I would think we'd be looking at somewhere in the 35 to 40 years life. Efficiency, the good thing is that we are literally up in the air pretty far, not quite where we are with a house or even with a flat roof building, depending on how they are. I am sure they do lose some efficiency. You know, I don't know how much, but the one good thing is that we're putting in more than we need. So we should be always have the same 35% of our requirements available. So that part, I think. Other than that, you know, I don't really know anything beyond that, and the only thing I can tell you is there's a 25-year warranty. So it is possible that after that, if something major happened, a hailstorm might be, I don't know how they affect things. There's all kinds of things that can affect you that you have to, it's like your air conditioning unit or your roof or any of that stuff. There are things out there that can change your life expectancy for sure. Good point. I mean, I think we have to think about it, and it's nothing we can guarantee for sure. Mm-hmm.
How's this impact, if it does have any impact, on the insurance for the building? Like you mentioned, hailstorms and things like that. Does this up the insurance rate, the fact that you're switching your energy source?
Is it having an effect based on the energy source? I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, a good point about, I mean, will the insurer come up and have questions that need to be asked too about damage to the panels if that's producing your electricity? Maybe not?
Will our insurance change? You know, that's a good question, and I don't know that we've addressed it, to be honest. But we can find that out. That's a good thing we ought to do for sure.
Have we looked for any sources of, say, grant funding or anything that would help nonprofits like ours become more sustainable and energy efficient?
The grant funding is something that Cindy and I think that group said they would be looking into, hopefully. I mean, we do want to do that, but that's more or less a way of raising funds. I mean, again, I think we're looking at whatever we can do to either get money from the congregation or anybody else for that matter. And grants are certainly a possibility. And if you know, anybody knows how to write grants or request grants, or that would be a big help, I'm sure. So it's a big thing. I think Cindy's group is going to be the ones that's going to head up the fundraising piece of it. So.
How much do we need to raise? Is it the 237?
How much what?
How much money do we need to raise to do this?
Well, we have a deal. I think we got approved $125,000 to borrow from our own own
endowment sources.
Yeah, endowment sources to borrow from that to handle it if we do. So that leaves us about $100,000 that we'd still need to figure out how we pay for, whether we, you know, borrow it and pay it back through energy savings, or just get contributions to cover it. And then we don't have, we are always going to have the full effect of the energy savings. So, yeah, right now we need the 237. That's right.
What's the timing of the government rebate? Does everything need to be raised before they'll give the rebate?
The rebate is part of the fund that was approved last year. It goes from 2023 to 2032. It is a fixed amount, and I couldn't tell you how much that is. It's a pretty good sized chunk, but that's for the whole country. So,
how much do we have to raise before they will provide their funds? In the life of the project, when does that money come in?
oh, right away. That
Really?
government funds?
Yeah.
Yeah, right away. I mean, by that, it's right away in government time, which I can't, I don't know. We don't, you know, at this point, to be honest with you, they haven't actually even got a form. They're pretty sure it's going to be regulated through IRS, but they don't even have the form to do the requisition. So there's no guarantee. They may wait until you're complete before they pay you.
That's typical.
That's good possibility.
That's typical for government funding. So the question is, I mean, we're going to have to pay bills as we go. So we really have to raise more than 100,000, right? We have to
Right.
raise the government's portion as well.
We may
so
have
we
to
can pay
carry it,
contractors.
yes, one way or another, yes.
It's 250.
Exactly. Yeah? No, this is strictly, this is for nonprofits only. Everybody else is a tax credit, but we don't pay any taxes, so it wouldn't do us any good, so, yeah.
So just to clarify what I think I heard Jim say, we need to raise the 237, right? We're going to get 100,000 of that, or 125 from endowment. We have to pay that back. Are we going to pay that back at the level of the 8,000 savings that we get a year? And then in addition to the money we have to raise, we also have to raise 146,000 to cover the government and pray they pay us, right? So it's not just 237 minus 125,000. It's 237 plus 146,000, right? We have to raise all that amount and then hope we get the rebate back. So just, is that correct?
Yeah, the short term on the government money is going to be not something we got to worry about paying it back. I mean, we're going to get it. It's just we may have to finance it or find it or borrow it for a year or so, or maybe less. The project, if it started now, if we got approval, the project would be at least, to be honest, I think before, they've got a final design to do, they've got plans to do, we've got to submit to the city for permits, and that can take 6 weeks. We're probably looking at 3 months before we've got it ready to roll. So, you know, once we decide we're going to do it, we start publicizing it, we try to raise some money, see what happens. We'll start trying to figure out and get the application into the government. So it's hard to put a timeline on it, but you're looking at 10 weeks, we think, once construction starts to get it finished. So sometime next summer. But yeah, the government piece of it, we may have to carry it for a little while, but that's not a long-term thing. So.
And part of the reason that it's a little fuzzy is because the government has not released a lot of information about how to access those funds yet, so we're still waiting to hear about how that's going to take place.
Others are in the process. There's a church in Richmond that has just about complete on their solar installation, and they are working on it hard. So we got people that are going to hopefully, you know, narrow it down for us a little bit so we don't have as much work to do to get it figured out.
So we just got $1.5 million for the sale of Hinton Avenue. And I think that has to be plowed back into capital improvements. Is that not true?
No, we asked for a ruling on that. That was my understanding of it, but they've said that it could be used for other things. But that capital improvements certainly would be one thing it could be used for. Yeah.
There's a pretty big chunk of money that would certainly help out with this project.
It would definitely help if we just knew we could use it if we need it. I mean, I think that's a phenomenal piece, that if we could just say, you know, if we don't raise the money or have all of it raised or whatever, and even to borrow it temporarily until we get the government's 150. So, you know, this church has done phenomenal things. We started out in 2012 to do the sanctuary, and it was $1 million project. We seeded $300,000 that we had from another state thing, anyway, the Thomas thing. And by the time we got started on the project, I think we were actually within a little over $100,000 of having enough money. So, and that came in, I think we had to borrow that for a few months, but not very much. So that's, I mean, to me, that's a good sign. The steeple was the same thing. We spent $500,000 there, and it was amazing. Once the project starts, people in this church and congregation are phenomenally generous and get excited about things we're doing that are benefiting the church or benefiting the community. And this is doing both, and I really think we'll see, you know, the opportunity, grants, there's a lot of grants around, there's all kinds of opportunities. But if we had that money there to just say, okay, if we need it, it's here. And that would be phenomenal. I don't know if that can happen or not, but it would be great. But I think we could do it either way. I really think, even if we have to borrow it from the endowment money, some of it, that we could get it taken care of.
To paraphrase a beloved member who can't be here today, Frank McMullen, he pointed out, what?
He's probably watching.
Oh, okay. He pointed out in an email to me how the people of this church were visionaries and would pay for things that they knew they weren't going to benefit from many years down the road. And this church is an example of that. And the money that was borrowed and eventually paid back. But I think we do have to think about the future. It's not just for us right here and now, but for those that are going to be coming after us.
Before we go to any more, I just wanted to, we've got a few more slides that we didn't show. I don't know whether that might help. And I also want to say a word about this sheet, and then we can go back to some more questions. But I can't even remember what the slides are, but if you could just roll through them. Yeah, okay, so I think you covered this guy, but the electrical savings, you know, would be about $8,000 a year, and the net cost of the project paid back through the electricity savings over about 30 years based on the life of the panels. We also had some information in the report about some other projects that could be done either in conjunction with the solar project or in other ways. You want to say just an overview of what the motion sensor and LED?
Yeah, the motion sensors, we have a big building here. A lot of it's remote. It's hard to keep up with. We do leave lights on. I know you at home don't do that, but we do here. And it happens that we leave some lights on when they shouldn't be on, and when nobody's there, nobody's using them. So motion sensors are the thing, and it shouldn't be everywhere, but a lot of it. So we've already started. We got a count. We've looked at how we do it and all this kind of stuff. We just haven't put together the dollar and haven't actually calculated the full better energy savings on those or on LED lights. LED are here in this room. LED are in the chapel, room 208. We've put a few in bulbs, various places as we have gone bad. But LED will cut, you know, the lighting that we use about down to 30%. We're going to save 60, 70% of the energy because they're not much more efficient. The amount of money it's actually saves depends on how much we use them. And we have a lot of rooms here which are used very little, maybe, you know, once a week. Maybe increasing those. So that's another factor that we have to consider is that as we continue to get more active, more stuff going on, we're going to use more spots here in the building. So that's, you know, the biggest chunk that would probably be affected is the motion sensors, the lights, would also do that, but maybe not as much in terms of total energy. So that's something we're working on. We should have, hopefully in the next, depending on how this, getting through the solar, this has taken a lot of time, and we just haven't had, I haven't had time, or nobody's really had time to deal with it. But we plan to. So that's something we probably should consider, and if we can work the thing out with payback, then it would be a good deal.
Mm-hmm. And I think the next one is probably just where they are.
Oh yeah,
where the panels
that's
will
where
be located.
the panels are planned to go.
Yeah.
2 sets on this roof. We're going to take most of this roof, the sanctuary roof, and then the short roof looking at the parking lot, facing that way. We're going to do that. Amounts to 152 panels and 62.5 kW, kilowatts of electricity generated.
Yeah. And then, of course, the names. I wanted you to see the names of the folks who've been involved in this. They put a lot of hours into working on this project, Guy and Bill and Charles and Dave. So we want to thank them for that. The other thing that's not up there on the slides is this sheet, which hopefully got around. Have we passed this out? Have you seen one that's got like a pros and cons panel? This is something that the trustees came up with when they met last week and through the week following, just to try to help them think through, what they might recommend or what they think is involved. And so this might be helpful in your thinking as well, just to look at it. I'm just going to go through it quickly. On the left-hand side, you see some of the factors that could be considered in support of going ahead with the project right now. One is the project reflects a commitment to addressing climate change, provides a positive image for the church and the community, and reflects our commitment to environmental justice and sustainability. The second one's related to it. The project's a witness and a model for other organizations in the community. And I'll just say, we got a lot of, you may have followed last year when we were going through the whole BAR process and appealing to the city council. There were a lot of folks who were paying attention while we were doing that, and a lot of folks who were asking questions. And so there are other churches that are considering this now, University Baptist being one that called us to see what our experience was. They don't have the joy of being in a historical district, and they have a flat roof, so it's a little different for them. But they were very curious to see what that process was like. Guy was telling me St. Thomas Aquinas is also and it's got a solar project as well that they're working on. So, in some ways, this project has already started to do some of that. Number 3 there, 1/3 of the project would be, as we've said, will be paid through a government credit and refund. And if you go over to the other side, number 5, one thing about government programs is there's no assurance they'll continue or that the funding for them will go on. So delaying the project might mean that money might not be there in the future. The COA, the Certificate of Appropriateness that we received from the city to go ahead with the project, is due to expire in September. So if we did not begin the process before September, we might face going back to the city. So that's another factor to consider. We talked about the possibilities of a capital fund drive and other resources that we might look to for the funding. Roofing and labor costs likely to increase in the future. The initial small annual electricity savings will increase as future electricity costs increase, so we'll see more coming back hopefully through that. And the replacement of the metal roof, which is, as guys described it, mitigates the expected future slate roofing repair cost. So those are all factors that we considered in thinking about why it might be time to move forward with it. The other side, factors that support deferring or reevaluating later, is an escalation in the roofing cost has increased the project cost. The return on investment, as we've talked about, now extends to about 30 years. The cost of solar panel systems may decrease in the future, although labor and material costs will likely increase. The IRS has not given us final guidance on how that credit refund process is going to work. Number 5, we've talked about. Number 6, the church has and continues to explore other ways to reduce the carbon footprint. And number 7, delaying the project means that the savings might help us do some other things in the community and be put to use in other ways. So those, the trustees really struggle with all of this. And I think part of the struggle is, when we first considered this project, we were thinking it made sense on both the environmental level and the financial level. Well, now we're at that point where the financial piece is not so clear. If it were any less, it's a no-brainer to me. We'd go forward. If the costs were any more, it might be a no-brainer as well to say, oh, well, it's too much. But it's right at that point, and that's why we're at this town hall discussing it together. All right, that's all I got. We got questions, more questions.
I have a question for Guy, and that is, what percentage do you believe of our electrical costs will be removed by having the panels on the roof? I know we're not hooking all of the electric to the solar system.
We're going to generate about 35% of our electrical usage. We're going to save that much. That'll be reduced by 35%. So how that generates in dollars is all I can tell you is that one estimate we did, which is pretty accurate. The $8,000 we can pretty well count on that's going to happen. The rest of it is still a little bit more of a guesswork, like the increase in electricity costs. None of us really know what that's going to be. We know it's going up, I think. That's pretty positive. And we don't know what we're going to generate a lot more electricity than we use. So whatever Dominion pays us for that is going to go back into the pot. So, again, I think we could add maybe $3,000. We could be looking at $11,000 a year savings over the average, that period of time. So that's all I can tell you about it. But it's 35% our generating.
I would not rely on the government rebate. It hasn't been solidified. The Congress is going to reduce the national budget, but they're going to increase costs for the southern border and for military because of the increased wars around the world. And the IRS is going to get less money than they currently get. So one of the things they may reduce or eliminate is rebates. Also, if we get a new administration in the executive branch, there'll be less interest in greening America and more interest in increasing oil and gas production. So I think that rebate is hoped for, but not guaranteed.
Jeff? About that, you got another one back there?
So,
yeah. Can I borrow your mic?
I'm sorry, I just want to ask the trustees that are here, you've spent a lot of time and energy on this, no pun intended. Now that you have all the pros and the cons and the months that you've spent doing this, what is your recommendation?
That's
Our recommendation is the town hall meeting to ask you guys.
I mean, Charles, I don't know if you want to say, we talked a long time about it, and I think where we came down was that the trustees, in just speaking with each individual member was willing to offer their, what they thought, and we had, I think the majority of the group felt it was, they would be comfortable going forward, recognizing the things that we were facing. But there were others who saw benefits in going the other direction, not doing it too. So I think that's why they didn't come with a strong recommendation today, is because that group itself is really struggling. Yeah.
So I have a couple questions. A couple things. I've looked into solar for my house and done a lot of research on it. And one of the things, when I looked into it, Virginia had a 1-to-1. Basically, if you produce more than you're using, you basically got whatever you were paying for that energy coming back. They would pay you what you were paying for the energy if you produced more. And another issue that some of the solar companies brought up is a bunch of the laws in the states. The energy companies actually are going to have to buy back solar credits from people as individuals, and they have to produce enough solar energy to be a certain percentage set up by, and Virginia is one of those states that has that, and that hasn't been figured into this. I mean, the other thing is, looking at the numbers, I think you said we're producing 60,000 kilowatts and we're only using 30, we're only basing the calculations on using 33. So theoretically, we'd almost get back double what we're saying, and we're using the lower number in the calculation. We're not calculating the credits that we could sell, theoretically. The other thing that the energy companies tell you is that energy is increasing faster than other costs. The rate of inflation on it is higher, and I think we've used a standard kind of inflation calculation in here. The other thought I had was, if we're producing double, is there any thought about not putting them on 3 roofs and just producing less, particularly if we want to do some of the other projects, and maybe put them on one roof instead of 3, and then you'd be basically only producing enough that you're producing the same amount that you're using. Is that a thought that we would want to consider? I've been in a lot of the meetings too, and I'm sorry I haven't brought some of these things up, but
to be honest with you, we started out wanting 60 to 70 kilowatts. And we originally thought we would be able to put all of our stuff, electrical use in the building, on that service and be able to use more of it. But we can't. It was going to cost us an additional $110,000 to do the conversion to be able to use our large motors, if you will, on and tied into solar. The cost of that, again, was a huge change when we had anticipated it being, 20 to 30,000. So we figured out a way to do that, and the way we're doing that is actually we're just separating the big motors, which are for the large air conditioning units, the units for this room, the units for the fellowship hall, the unit that does the education wing, or whatever you want to call it, from there on over. The elevator's not used a lot. It's a high requirement, but it's not used a lot. So it's not taking a lot of electricity. Those units, air conditioning units, are only during the summer. So we separated that. So we're not going to be able to use those with solar energy. That's just not happening. So we just left the requirement back. Again, that came up later, so we had already done the estimate for the full amount. And when we got into it, we figured we could sell it back to Dominion, so it made sense to just stay with it. If you've got to do it, you might as well do it right. So, and do everything we can for the environment, the whole ballgame. So that's kind of where we are. We could look at that. My guess is the cost per panel is going to go up, but I could be wrong. So.
I have a question.
Julie's over here too. Okay. I got it, guy. Okay. Here, guy, you keep that.
Guy, you mentioned borrowing from the endowment fund. To the best of my knowledge, you don't borrow from the endowment fund. You can only use what's available for each year or what's carried over from the year before for some, and it has to be from the specific funds that are designated that can be used for something like this, or general funds.
Yeah, we got approval to use only, what's the word,
non-designated.
Not designated, that's
Yeah.
it. Funds. We can, you know, we're only talking $100,000. We got almost that much in the trustees contingency fund, so.
Yeah, but I said endowment, but I guess we should have been more clear, is that we're not talking about the endowment committee's designated funds. We're talking about funds like the Thomas Fund.
That's right.
That is not designated and administered by the endowment committee. For the,
You can use the funds. You can use the funds, but you don't borrow them. It's just what's available each year or carried over from the year before.
for use, right.
Well, I'm just saying, he mentioned funds from the endowment.
Yeah, there's some special conditions with endowment fund use that might not make that the best source.
What happens to the donor funds if you don't build them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think at that point we would, if the church were to make a decision that was different from what the donor had intended, I think we'd have to go back to the donor and talk to them about whether that use was in line with what they intended.
Are we looking for a vote on this, or are we just kicking the ball around the room for a while?
So as we've been talking about this, we've been talking about this as a town hall to give information about the plan and to get some feedback from you, which you're giving through your questions. We'd also look for a straw vote. The council will be the one to actually make a decision about where this goes. So they're the ones, and they're meeting tomorrow night. And the reason Priscilla's up here is she's taking notes so that we'll have that available as well for the council as they determine it. Okay. Okay.
I just, after listening to all this and looking at the numbers, it seems to me, financially, it isn't a great deal. Yeah, Charles and I both talked about this. It's not a great deal. But if it were less money, it would have been a better deal. Like Guy said, it would have been a no-brainer, or rather, Alex said it would have been a no-brainer if we hadn't had an extra $100,000 roofing thing. So this comes down to a situation, is it the right thing to do? That's really what we're going to end up voting on. Is it the right thing that we feel, whatever the money is, as much as I hate to say it, whatever the money is it the right thing for this church to do for the intangible reasons? That's all I can say. So now we can vote.
Sorry.
Grace. Yeah.
So I just wanted to speak to one thing about the selling energy back to Dominion, the grid for Dominion. So right now, you're right, it is a 1-to-1 ratio, but there will be a proceeding either later this year or early next year where that may change and is likely to change, probably for the worse. So if it does change, we wouldn't be getting back a 1-to-1 ratio, which is one reason you might want to do something now rather than later in terms of the financial benefit.
That's helpful, thank you.
I would agree. I wouldn't be counting on that being that much. I think they're going to discount it.
I have a question about what other capital projects are vying for these dollars as well, in terms of, is it the right thing to do? If we don't do this and we are asking for donations, what other projects are in the channel?
Do one of you want to speak to that, or you? Charles is our trustees chair. That's why I'm looking to him. Yeah.
I think one of the main ones you heard Alex or showed some of
which is a transfer to doing more LED, more motion sensors, commodes that use less water, caulking on the doors, things of that nature, I think. I would say probably the next capital thing we take a look at, which we guys already started, is the portico. That is a flat area. It is leaking to a degree probably right now and will only get worse. So that I would say is probably the next capital thing that we work on. Beyond that, I think as a group looks at the vision of the church and where we're trying to go and what the next 5, 10 years may bring, I think the outcome of that group will translate to, okay, what are we going to do to make the church more functional and usable on a day-to-day basis?
So I see Jim and I see Hugh and and then Bob. Oh, Bob's got the microphone. Go ahead.
I guess I have control.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I have control if I have the microphone. Alex, I got a question for you, and then I'll have a comment. Do you know what is necessary to be able to keep the COA in place? Is it just getting a building permit, or do we have to actually begin construction by September 20th?
That's probably a Bill Owen question. Yeah.
I don't know absolutely for sure, but I think it shows some kind of indication that we started. So I'd say some kind of construction permit. I can clarify that. But that's generally what it means. You don't have to have it done by any means, but you have to have some.
He needs the mic.
What I'm hearing Bill say is, well, he can say.
Generally, the way it works is you have to just show some kind of indication of starting on the project, a building permit, some kind of government issuance of something that we've started. By no means do you have to have it done or something like that, but you'd have to have it started.
Okay. The reason why I asked the question is that if everybody's or the majority's in favor of this, then I don't have to make the next comment. But if there's a lot of people who are going, oh, that's a big dollar figure, one of the things that can be done is to work toward making sure that we have sufficient work done before the deadline, the COA, and allow some of these other questions to be answered, such as is there grant money? Is the IRS going to actually come forward with that and all, so that we don't have to make an economic decision right now? And I would think that I would suggest that at the town hall meeting, vote today would be one of kind of a concept of, are we in favor of this concept? Allowing then the trustees and the council to be able to work toward resolving some of the financial things and moving forward. It's not like we have this deadline today that we have to make a final decision or get final opinion on everybody, but just do we in concept think this is still a good idea, and then look at working out some of the other financial aspects of this.
When we do a contract or whatever we do with various things, we're going to have 3 months of waiting for final drawings and final permits and that kind of thing. We're probably looking at 3 months to do that. Our intent is just like when we started out going to BAR. We had an idea of a budget. It was wrong, but we did have a budget, and we had a figure. But we went through the BAR process knowing that we had to resolve a lot of issues, such as the roof. I mean, it was not a given. We didn't know at that time how we were going to solve it, but we knew we would solve it. The same thing is true with this. We are knowing that this is something that's got to be dealt with. We have no intentions of starting construction on anything until we know, and you know, where the money is going to come from. So I don't think, I guess it's just that we know how we kind of deal with stuff. It's sort of like the sanctuary, when we did that, we had a learning curve, and we knew there was a certain amount of time, but the fact is, if you don't get started, you really feel like you're wasting time. And I think that's kind of where we are. We felt like we were in a position to make the effort to figure all this out worthwhile. The same thing is going to be true here. We vote to do this. If we find something in between that, such as that $150,000 from the government isn't going to fly, we reevaluate. I mean, that's not something we're just going to go ahead. Does that make sense? I mean, I hope you understand we're all here to make sure we can cover whatever we got to do. And if it comes out to be a problem, we're going to stop.
Two things. One is we're talking about two different projects. We might agree on one and disagree to proceed with the other right away. One is doing the LED lighting and motion sensors, which could be begun immediately. And the other is the solar project, which will take some more time. So we probably ought to have two votes, who's in favor of one or the other or both.
We're not really ready to talk about the LED or the motion sensors at this point. We still got a lot of work to do. We're probably talking, if you're depending on us to do it and not go out and hire an engineer somewhere, we're probably looking at 2 months, maybe 3. So just so you know, we got a budget out here that we deal with, and we try to create those things so it gives us a working situation.
Yeah,
but it's not anywhere near being able to propose it. We don't have a cost on any of it. So.
The thing also I wanted to clarify is that there are 2 Thomas funds that are in the Virginia Conference Foundation. That's where they're invested. One is the Thomas Trustees Fund, which is not in the endowment, which could be borrowed from, and it has plenty of money in it. The other, as Evelyn mentioned, the Thomas Endowment is a fund that can't be borrowed from. It's an endowment. The corpus or the body of the endowment remains always, and then we can take 4% of that per year, averaged over 3 years, for anything we choose to use it for. So it would have to be from the Thomas Trustee Fund if we're going to borrow over $125,000.
Thank you for clarifying that, Hugh. That's really helpful. So I recognize that we've gone over an hour, and I see folks headed for lunch. So let's see if we can move towards a conclusion here soon.
Okay, one quick question. Is this on? Okay. We all appreciate all the work that's gone into this. But one question I have is going back to what was brought up earlier. If we're building a much larger array than we need or will ever use, and then we're just counting on giving electricity back to Dominion for 30 years to break even, why don't we decrease the size of the project? I mean, we don't need 60 kilowatts, right? So we don't use that much. So I guess I don't understand, why don't we make this thing smaller, and then maybe that brings the cost back more in the line of what we can do easily.
Were you going to speak to that, Kevin?
Yeah. With respect to the size of solar in general, building more once you get to the point of doing the infrastructure changes is always beneficial. There's dozens of community solar projects requirements in the state of Virginia, and you'll be able to get people to buy that power. So there's really not too much of an issue there. And once you're up there doing with the roof, you want to extend as much as you possibly can, because that's how you make the community more sustainable over the long term. This is the kind of stuff that we've dealt with all over the country. So when you get there, you don't want a minimal build, you want the maximum build, because then the community has access to that power. And the state of Virginia is actually pushing towards that outside of DOE's requirements of having community solar projects where solar is built to help everyone in the community. So building more capacity is good, building less is not as helpful.
Okay, and Carolyn snuck the microphone to me. So I just want to say, as a newer member of the congregation, one of the reasons we visited this church was the articles we saw in the paper about the commitment to the environment. And if you want to bring younger people into this church, you need to show a commitment, or we need to show a commitment to taking care of the world and the environment and the community by creating more power.
Thank you. So I hope that you have learned as much as I have in this whole process. Because there is a whole lot of, there's a whole lot to anything, and learning these particulars has been helpful not only for us, but as we've said, for the whole community. And obviously there is more to go. Obviously there are other things that we could talk about. Obviously, a group of 100 folks is probably not the best decision-making group for that, but you can give some feedback that will help the church council. So I appreciate all that has been said, and Priscilla, thank you for volunteering to collect a lot of that, and for the issues that have been raised. And I understand there was some conversation this morning that there were maybe folks who didn't get a chance to see the report ahead of time, that maybe you didn't understand that we might be asking for a straw vote today, and I understand how uncomfortable that is. But since we have said that, I want to just offer that opportunity. As we said, the LED project has been on our books and one that will continue. I don't think that's what we'll vote on today, but we wanted to just ask you if you would give some feedback to the council as they continue this deliberation. And hopefully we'll be able to bring you more information as they move ahead with the project. So, anything else before we just ask for a straw vote? Yeah, Joe, yeah. Joe, okay, so what are we voting on, Joe asked, and it's a great question. I think the way Bob framed it is probably good. I think what we're doing is saying, here's a framework as we understand it now for how our solar project could happen, recognizing that there are pieces of it that are still yet to be determined. So I think what we're voting on is, do we feel like we want to encourage the council to continue this project, knowing that there'll be more details down the road? Or do we feel like maybe this is a time to put on the brakes and to say, let's look at other ways that we can approach both sustainable energy issues and mission in the community? So, all right. Okay, so if you support the idea of continuing with the solar project as it's been outlined, would you just raise your hand? Okay, and for those who feel more like the pause button is more accurate, if you'd say no, would you raise your hand? Okay. All right, well, I think you've given us some good feedback, and obviously it looks like for those of you who may be online, there was a clear majority supporting going ahead with the project. And thank you again to the committee for all of their work, to the trustees and the council. And to all of you, and I want to make a commitment that we're going to continue to push out information and try to communicate this better as we go forward. Take care. God bless.